Faction Wars can be a tough game mode to crack, man. A lot of the time you're kind of making do with what you've got, and so in this video we're going to be covering all kinds of obscure and I suppose less spotlighted epic champions that you can look to max out in each of your factions. One for every faction. It's going to be tough for some more than others to help you blast the crap out of Faction Wars mostly. So I'm going in reverse order. We're going to start off with the Sylvan Watchers. I'm kind of tempted to spotlight Renan just a little bit because of her revive, but that feels like a little bit of a cop-out. You know what, man? There's all kinds of good epics here in the Sylvan Watchers. Diana and Dithie get all kinds of spotlight attention as some of like the best damage dealers in the Sylvan Watchers on a budget. Pan, the Boarhorn, on the other hand, doesn't quite get spotlighted as much, and it makes no sense, dude. This guy is great. He brings an increased speed buff himself, an increased attack buff to himself before attacking into all enemies on his A2, which is great. His A3 is one of those super versatile skills that kind of adapts based on what you're doing, so it's a triple hitter that ignores a little bit of defense. Great. Each hit will also have a chance of placing True Fear, but if you're against a boss enemy, instead you'll place a Weaken debuff instead. And on his A1, it's a multi-hitter as well with a chance of placing Freeze, so a little bit of hard mode Fire Knight utility there as well. Just a great, very versatile, epic attack style champ, and if you pull him early as your first major damage dealer for your Sylvan Watchers, you might as well max him up, and you're pretty gosh darn likely to regret it. Ooh, dude, I like videos like this one, man, where we're making an effort to avoid the obvious picks for every faction, right? It's like Shadowkin, I mean, we're looking at like Taragi, Hitatsu, both great champions. Fenchi's obviously like a Fire Knight specialist. We've got all kinds of champs here that you see spotlighted all the time, you know? Oboro, Genbo, are you kidding me? Two incredible champs here as well. Even Burengiri gets spotlighted a lot. A champion that doesn't get spotlighted a whole lot, however, and my underrated pick, giving a little bit of love to good old Kunoichi. And if you feel like I'm missing well, if you feel like a lot of people sleep on a specific epic champion that's great for a certain faction for you on your account, make sure to share it down below, man. Kunoichi, this is a champ that I pulled quite recently on my main account, and her kit at least reads very good indeed. She has a chance to place Weaken on her A1. She's going to tackle enemies on the A2 with a chance of placing Leech debuff for 2 turns, and Leech is just a debuff that it's almost difficult to overstate just how underrated the Leech debuff is, especially from new players. Christ, especially from me. I've just been waking up to it recently like, oh my god, the more damage you're dealing with your guys, the more value and healing you're getting from the Leech debuff, and so I'm starting to take notice of just how useful it is into basically all areas of the game. And then she also brings a ally protection buff, strong version on all allies for a couple of turns. And dude, this is on a 3-turn cooldown, and it fills her 10 meter by 50 stinking %. So she rushes right back to her very next turn and gets that Leech debuff off very quickly indeed. Oh yeah, and on their passive, place a block damage buff on this champion for 1 turn whenever their HP drops below 50%. Dude, so much utility, so much survivability. This is exactly the kind of champ you want to get your hands on LYDIA fast and max out your Shadowkin Faction Wars. Next up, an underrated and slept on pick for the dwarves in terms of epic champions, because again, we've got all kinds of good ones here. I don't think Grizzled Jarl quite makes the grade. I was considering taking him up to maybe level 50, giving him a try on my account, but he's been kind of knocked down the priority list just a little bit. But we've got some great picks here, man. Gala, Morag, Geomancer. Just a lot of solid champs. A champ that I don't see get spotlighted quite often enough is honestly the illustrious, the incredibly helmeted Rockbreaker, man. This dude, when it comes to wave control, he's got himself an AoE provoke on a 3-turn cooldown, 100% land rate, and he also places a counterattack buff on himself as well for a couple of turns when applying this provoke, which is lovely. Of course, needless to say, he's a defense-based champ. Love the design of this guy, by the way, but the counterattack on his A2 is particularly good because his A1, every single time he A1s in, increases champion's defense by 4%, stacking up to 20%. Just very solid, especially when combined with his passive, which gives him a 50% chance bucked of decreasing damage inflicted on this champ by half each time this champion is attacked. The guy is just sturdy as hell. You can just build him out to level 50 if you just want some extra wave control into Faction Wars, and that's it really. I don't think I've ever seen Rockbreaker mentioned apart from one time, like in an Ash video that he uploaded like 2.5 years ago or something. I think he touched on Rockbreaker briefly. Never seen him mentioned again since in anybody else's video, so he is going to be my kind of slept on or underrated, underappreciated pick for the dwarfs. Hey man, I'll tell you a champ that isn't being slept on at all. It's Fane, one of the best Demon Lord clan boss damage dealers in the game by a lot for the Skinwalkers faction, and you can get yourself Ugo, Fane, Romero, and Vegas for free epic champions simply by starting off a new raid account using my beginner promo link, which as always is down below at the top of the video description, don't you know? Make sure you're signed out of Plarium Play, click on that link to download raid and create your new account, and bam, those 4 free epic champions, as well as a whole extra batch of supplies, by the way, as you level up your account, will all be yours. This is too much good stuff in this beginner promo link to cover, so we'll just leave it at this. It's the best beginner promo link going. There it is, man. Make sure to use it if you're looking to start off a new raid account or a new free-to-play adventure or something like that, man. Okay, onwards to the Knights Revenant faction, where honestly we're a little bit stacked here as well, man. I mean, Miscreated Monster, yes, dude. Sinesha, Doom Priest, incredible. Just great supports. For the most part, supports and controllers, right? Sepulchre, Sentinel, Rector, Thalessia is even very, very solid. Don't even get me started on Bloody Whisper, and I know there's some big Franox fans out there as well, even though I haven't really tried her out myself. I think my pick is probably gonna be good old Golden Reaper. Frankly, this is just a fantastic support style champ, just an all-round supporter. On the A3, 310 cooldown brings a strong version of increased speed and 10-meter boost, which right off of the bat is just lovely to have. And then on the A2, it's an attack all enemies with a 75% chance bucked of placing strong decrease attack, and decreases the 10 meter of each target by 20% if they do not get the decrease attack debuff. And the A1 is an attack one enemy with a chance of decreasing the cooldown of one of a random ally's skills by 110, as well at a 50% land rate. If you just need to speed up your Knights Revenant Faction Wars team, you've got a champ that you can here just take up to level 50 here. That is just going to give you a crazy, crazy amount of value, crazy bang for your buck, and you can just leave her at level 50 at that. Next up, and we've got the Dark Elves, and we've got to pick one champ here that I never see ever get mentioned in anybody's like top epic champion videos or top epic tier lists or anything like that here on YouTube, because there's a few good picks we can go for here. To be fair, it's got to be Kaiden. Dude, I never see this champ get spoken about, and I have no idea why. Frankly, it's a great champ. It was part of like a fusion. It was like a fusion component champion in a previous monthly fusion. A lot of people thought that Kaiden was actually better than the legendary champ that you could fuse Kaiden into. You know, that's how good this champ is. So it's kind of crazy that it never gets spoken about. Has a double revive on the A3. Also places increased defense buff on revived targets for 110 as well. It's a 410 cooldown double revive. Not bad at all, man. And then on the A2, it's an attack all enemies with 100% land rate, strong decrease attack debuff for a couple of turns. Just a damn good egg, fantastic supporter, incredible to take up to just a level 50 even, to help you max out the Dark Elves faction wars, and isn't mentioned quite enough. Onwards to the Undead Hordes, where there's honestly some of the better, one of the better epic rosters in the game. I mean, we're looking at Dark El, Hane, Husk, Anax is amazing, Volgoth for wave control, great support champions in Gorgrab and Mausoleum. But you know what? This pick is more me calling myself out a little bit for not maxing up my Seeker yet. What the hell am I doing, dude? This champion is crazy as hell. This champion is really, really good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the hell's wrong with me. I don't know why I'm sleeping so much on the Seeker, but fills 10 rate of allies by 30% on a 310 cooldown, and then grants an extra 10, as well as the increased attack buff as well, of course. But the fact that you also get an extra 10 from this makes it actually a 1.710 cooldown. 1.710 cooldown, right? Because it's a 310 cooldown bucked. You then get an extra 10, and then it fills your 10 meter by like 30%, so it's a 1.710 cooldown, okay? Which is crazy, crazy good for this amount of 10 meter fill. Then also brings like a medium-ish land rate provoke on the A1 for just a little bit of extra control. What am I doing, dude? My Seeker is still literally like level 40. Should at least be taking that champ up to 50. Shame on me. Okay, man. Onto the Demon Spawn faction. Some good picks all up in here, of course. There's a few ways that we could go with this. We could go with, like, Infernal Baroness or Nazana, talking about, like, a stun set style champion, as well as, like, obviously some of the more obvious picks that we are not going to touch on. Because we're sticking to the underrated ones in this video, I'm going to go ahead and sniff out Achak the Wenderin. Yeah, I feel like 80% of this champion's power comes... I mean, it brings, like, very, very powerful buffs and stuff as well. Block debuffs, strong strengthen, all of that good stuff. Grit, right? On the A3 though, attacks all enemies 90% chance bucked of placing a freeze debuff for 1 turn on enemies whose attack is higher than their defense, and has a 90% chance of placing HP burn debuff on enemies whose defense is equal to or higher than their attack. So basically, what does this mean? It means most of the time you're going to be freezing dangerous wave enemies and stuff like that. Spiderlings in Spider's Den are going to end up frozen, and bosses are going to be HP burned, and so it's just a great amount of versatility coming with this champ as well. But it's really about the passive in combination with the skill. So you freeze all of those spiderlings, fill the 10 meter of all allies by 10%. All allies by 10%, I repeat, with no cooldown, every time an enemy under a freeze debuff gets a turn. Oh my god, dude. You freeze like 12 spiderlings, you're just beating the hell out of the spider boss. As all of those spiderlings begin to defrost, it's like 12 spiderlings, 120% 10 meter fill across your entire team. On a passive, on a 3-turn cooldown skill. Dude, that's nuts. This guy is a cheat code to Spider's Den, as well as being fantastic for wave control, and even getting a little bit of HP burn off against bosses. At Jack the Wenderin, not quite shouted out enough for my liking. Actually got that guy in my account, man. I'd like to build him out, man, just for the fun of it one day. Ooh, I'm finally getting to that place in my account, by the way, man, where I can start to really focus on these more sort of underrated and obscure epic champions to just have fun with, and to progress in faction wars and that kind of thing, and make some meme builds and stuff like that. It's great, man. It's taken us a little bit of time to get here, to get like stable and clan boss and hydra and all those other game modes, but we're finally there, man, which is why I'm getting quite excited to do this. In fact, speaking of champs that I want to build out soon on my account, I've actually just got like a fully empowered Zagala now on my account. She's not going to be my pick for the Orcs faction, but great damage dealer. I managed to +4 her in the last shard pulling event, so this is one of those champs that I'm really excited to build out, just to see what she can do, because I feel like I underrated her damage modifiers and stuff just a little bit. So yeah, my pick for the Orcs, however, and a champ I would love to build out for faction wars, and then again a champ that I don't see get called out quite often enough, is this incredibly designed champ known as LYDIA. Now, what does she actually do? Well, let's check out the passive first and foremost, right? She's an attack-based champ, and her passive reads, revive a random ally with half HP every time this champion kills an enemy on a 2-turn cooldown. Her modifiers are not too bad. She kinda smacks. Her A3 is a single target hitter with a chance of placing a block buffs debuff and a block active skills debuff for a couple of turns. This attack is always critical. On her A2 is an attack all enemies, which again is going to be great for just securing some kills and getting consistent revives off on your team and things like faction wars. Has a 100% chance of placing decreased attack debuff for a couple of turns, and then she's also got a double hitter as well on the A1. Dude, this champ would be a hell of a lot of fun to build out, and honestly, she looks so goddamn cool that she's worth building out just for that anyway. Kind of similar to Trumbo, by the way. I know this guy's like a very sort of like mid epic champ, really. He's not going to be my call out for this video in any way, shape or form, but just looks insanely badass, man. I don't know. I mean, God, I can't be the only one who gets an itch to build out champions sometimes, just because they deserve it, because they look so awesome. You know, I just want to see them on the screen, and that's reason enough for me to want to build them out sometimes. Whoops, I actually just completely skipped over the Skinwalkers faction, so let's go ahead and take care of these guys. I think there'll be a lot of disagreement in this faction, man. What do people think? I think there's some like fairly obvious-ish, like good champs all up in here, right? Hofferys with his revive is a good call out for faction wars alone. For the Skinwalkers faction, I've seen some people say that they actually found that Scabrius was worth it. I tried him on my main account. He's okay. He's okay. He's not quite going to be my call out. Interesting to see if anybody gets any use out of Rhinebeast in his A2 revive. I think my two picks, I'm going to split my decision here just a little bit in between Ursine Ironhide, which is it's one of those again, like sort of slept on, underrated, underutilized champs that brings a, what is it, man? Okay, it's on its A3, attacks all enemies, 100% land rate, decreased attack debuff for a couple of turns. The only drawback with this is that it's a 4-turn cooldown, and so maybe he doesn't quite make the grid. I think the safer bet of my second call out for this, my backup call out, has got to be good old Basher. This is a champ that I pulled fairly recently, and it's very, very likely at this point, because I failed once again during another shard pulling event to find Sun Wukong, even though I'm sitting on a 6-star perfect soul for bloody Sun Wukong, and I need him so desperately. I didn't find him, and so I think Basher is probably a champ I'm going to be taking up for my Skinwalkers faction boss myself. It brings a weaken on the A1, attacks all enemies, increase the cooldown of all of the target's skills by 2 turns, like 100% land rate as well on the skill on his A2 on a 3-turn cooldown. just seems very, very excellent indeed for controlling waves. And then he's got a quadruple hitter attacking in at random with a chance of placing block, buffs, debuff for a couple of turns as well on his A3. So just does a whole lot of smacking with a little bit of kind of control and crowd control sort of mixed into his kit as well. Good old Basher, man. I'm quite excited to try that guy out myself. So that'll be my pick for the Skinwalker's factions. For the Lizard Men, again, great picks here. The obvious ones are going to include the likes of goddamn Jarek, Venomage, Broodlord. I tried out. He doesn't quite make the cut, to be fair. Some people swear by Aox, great champ. Slicks is also a champ that I actually do use as a damage dealer in my Lizard Men. Broadmoor, great reviver. I think my shout out has got to be Quaggin the Crowned, particularly for Faction Wars, just because of how versatile he is. He kind of just works in every team, and it's mostly because, well, he brings a little bit of healing and shielding and stuff on his A2, which is lovely, but his A3 places a perfect Veil buff and an increased attack buff for 2 turns on all allies whose attack is higher than their defense, and so your nukers get a hell of a lot of protection and increased damage from this skill. But place a block debuffs and an increased defense buff for 2 turns on allies whose defense is higher than their attack. So the likes of your provokers and your maybe like your HP based champions and stuff like that, who are actually going to be taking the brunt of your team's damage, they got all of the defensive buffs instead. And so Quaggin the Crown, man, this guy just brings so much survivability and key buffs to your team. Yeah, I think that he's worth a shout out. He doesn't get spotlighted quite enough, and so he's going to make the grade for this video as we press on into the Ogryn tribes. Oh man, I mean, Ugo, amazing. You can get Ugo for free, by the way, as one of the starter champions if you use my beginner promo link to sign up to raid. Just saying, by the way. Siege Hulk, great damage dealer. Skull Crusher is incredible. S tier, awesome, brings ally protect and huge counterattack buffs to your entire team. Just an amazing, amazing champion for clan boss and lots of other areas of the game too. She's a great all-rounder. I tell you what, man, Wuzgar doesn't get quite enough love. You know, I'm not sure if Wuzgar is actually going to be my pick, but this guy is great. Particularly good as like an early champ as well, like entry-level champ into normal Fire Knight. He brings a quadruple hitter on his A1, all kinds of healing and a counterattack buff on himself as well on his A2. Which again is lovely for getting started into Fire Knight. And then on his A3 brings a reflect damage buff and shield equal to 20% of this champ's max HP on all allies for 2 turns on his A3, which again, great into Fire Knight. And honestly, not a bad kit as well into Faction Wars for just some extra survivability. I'd never seen Buzzguy shouted out in my life as even just like a budget Fire Knight option, which it's kind of crazy. I think if we're talking strictly Faction Wars though, a champ that you could consider taking up even just to a level 50 would be Shadowbones, and it really comes down a lot to this A2. It's an attack all enemies 3 times, has a 50% chance, or rather a 75% chance to decrease the turn meter by 30%. This tooltip is worded horrifically, by the way. It's actually a 75% chance per hit to decrease the turn meter by 30%, meaning you could decrease an enemy's turn meter by 90% with this A2. It's an incredible 10 meter control skill. It actually activates 3 times. It just doesn't say that in the tooltip. Yeah, stupidly good when it comes to 10 meter control. He also brings a weak version, decreased speed, and some 10 meter fill of all allies by 25% as well, albeit on a 5-10 cooldown on his A3. And so Shadowbones, again, it's probably not one of those champs that you're going to take up to level 60, but for a utility wave controller style champ that's just going to keep control of the playing field at a level 50, never gets mentioned ever in anybody's videos, and so once again, he's going to be my underrated pick for the Ogryn tribes. Ooh, I like covering these more obscure champs, man, that you never see, that just never show up in other people's videos, you know, they never quite make the grade. I think of the Barbarian factions, I'm going to go ahead and cover a couple of wave controllers that are incredible to at least bring one of these champs into Faction Wars. The first is going to be Mina. She brings a strong version decreased defense debuff on a 310 cooldown on her A2 on an attack all enemies. She also steals a little bit of enemy 10 meter as well, which is great. And then on her A3, decrease the 10 meter of all enemies by 20%. Has a 100% chance bugged of placing a stun debuff for 110 on enemies who have their 10 meters fully depleted. And so a crazy amount of wave control from the big lady Mina. And then on Husker Roll, he's kind of like a similar style kit where he just has a very high land rate stun on his A2. Just brings a crazy amount of control to the team. He's also kind of stun immune himself and has the advantage of increasing the damage inflicted by all allies when attacking enemies under stun debuffs. And so just a fantastic support style champion. You kind of don't have to worry ever about losing to wave content. ever again, unless it just happens that, you know, with Hoskarul being Spirit Affinity, he's just trading it a crap load of magic affinity, like negative affinity trades, and so he's not landing a stun or something. Besides that eventuality, he just takes care completely of wave control, and he can just give you a stupid amount of value for not a whole lot of investment, you know? Okay, man, onto the Sacred Order, where we have a lot of crap here. Sacred Order is kind of a weird faction where it's very feast or famine with the epics. They're either great and S tier and kind of like must build if you pull them, right? Deacon, Goldseeker, Fennex, champions like that. Or there's just like the top row of champions up here, where it's just kind of a load of crap. And Juliana, you know, she has some like boss killer usage, but for the most part along the top row, just not looking that great. I could totally just cop out here and pick Romero, because he's included in my beginner promo link as the champion that you get at, I think, account level 45. But we won't do that, man. He's kind of like a very sort of like, I don't know, 3.5 out of 5 style, support style champ. I think I'll go ahead, spotlight Fennex, just for the sake of any new players out there who don't know how good this guy is, particularly because of his A1, right? It's not that common that a champion is just world-renowned, or at least raid-renowned, for the power level of their A1, but Fennex is one of those champions. It's an attack 1 enemy, place an extra hit if the target is under any debuffs. Enemies killed by the skill cannot be revived. So it cannot be revived. That action is usually just a little bit of a bonus, but the extra hit, because of how reliable it is really quite excellent, because you might think to yourself, well, it's just an A1, how good can the damage modifiers be? Good is the answer, like really good. Might actually be the best damage dealer A1 in the game. Okay, so if you can get your Fennex ticking and get him swinging in with that A1 as much as possible, alongside like some ally attack style champions and stuff, so he's really getting the A1 off as much as humanly possible in every given fight, the Fennex is going to do an incredible job, and more often than not, blow your expectations out of the water. Moving on up into the High Elves, again, we have like the notorious trio, man. The first 3 epic champions in the High Elves are just amazingly good. Vegas just down below as well is, of course, great. Can be built out of solo set and bosses and stuff like that. As for an underrated or slept on pick a little bit, Neldor Rhineblade, I think we're going to throw him on in there, again, for the newer players for the most part, just because they don't realize how good it is having a multi-hitter that places freeze on an A1 skill like this, which Neldor Rhineblade does have. And the reason this is so good is not just for extra wave control and things like Faction Wars, but you can also be using your Neldor into hard mode Fire Knight, where multi-hitters and free skills become extremely important in that particular game mode, right? So, hard mode Fire Knight utility, great control into Faction Wars, brings a quadruple hitter as well, with strong ass debuffs on his A2, and he also brings a double hitter on his A3, with each hit having a 75% chance bucked of placing strong decreased speed for a couple of turns as well. So amazing wave control, solid damage, Neldor Rhineblade, you ain't gonna regret the son of a gun, man. And finally, that brings us to the Banner Lords, where, I mean, again, it's sort of similar to the Sacred Order, where things are very feast or famine. You're either looking at like Archmage Helmet, great, Stag Knight, incredibly good, Signy's not bad, Ursula the Mourner is absolutely ridiculous, and then there's kind of everybody else. I mean, Lady Annabelle is also great as well, but then there's kind of like a lot of like crap, there's a lot of dross in between, you know. That said, a slept on Bannerlord epic that I think is great is good old Gisgard the Sigilled, man. This guy, I cannot fathom why this guy doesn't get shouted out as much as I believe he deserves it, man. First of all, actually, on his A3, he brings strong version increased defense and strong version increased attack on the same skill, 2-turn duration on a 3-turn cooldown, basically meaning 100% uptime for these two very key buffs indeed. On his A2, he brings an attack all enemies with a 75% chance of placing provoke debuff for 1 turn. Also shields himself up as well with this A2, so just fantastic wave control. And then on his passive, he actually brings a little bit of 10 meter fill, fills this champion's 10 meter by 15% whenever they are attacked by an enemy under provoke or increase attack. And my god, I forgot almost about the A1, which also has a 75% chance of placing strong version decreased attack debuff for 1 turn. So even the A1 is just rocking, dude. The A1 is great. This guy is great into early clan boss for your decreased attack option. Great into ice golem because he brings decreased attack debuff and he brings increased defense debuff, both on the strong. Just such a versatile Bannerlord epic champ. All kinds of wave control with the provoke. Yeah, you could take this guy up to 60. No doubt, if you pull him fairly early on your account, you use him almost forever in Faction Wars. You're going to use him almost forever in Secret Room content in the Doom Tower and stuff like that, Kiss, City Rooms, that kind of thing. But yeah, the earlier you pull this guy, you probably just use him everywhere, to be honest, until you find better specialist champs to eventually replace him in the likes of your dungeon teams. And that is all for the sleeper picks for epics in this video. Once again, man, do you feel like there is any champs, epic champions in particular, that you feel I slept on for each of the factions that I perhaps didn't touch on in this video? I'd love to hear all about it down below in the comments. And L, while you're down there, why not go ahead and start off your new raid account and join me in my free-to-play adventure that I currently got going on my second account by clicking on the beginner promo link, which of course is down below at the top of the video description box as well, man. Hit that link, use it to download raid, sign up, create a new account using that link. And yeah, you'll get yourself 4 free epic champions, man. It's an incredible start to your new raid adventure. And that's that, really. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you all did enjoy, and I'm going to catch all of you all just a tad bit later, man.